Tamie, I know I haven't told you this for a while, but you have like the coolest last name ever.
Thank you. Rising. Yes, people ask me how to spell it. They don't know if there's an E in it somewhere. And so I just say, it's like rising star. It's my own affirmation when I tell somebody how to spell my name.
That's so cool. I remember you reached out to me because you listened to my podcast a while back, and then we had this cool conversation, and it was the same thing. I'm like, is that your real last name? Or is that like your brand name? So
it is my birth name, and I
birth.
didn't really resonate with it for a long time because of my relationship to my father. And then when my relationship with my father changed, it was right there for me, and such a
Awesome.
beautiful gift waiting. Yes.
Uh, well, Tamie, I know a lot about you just from the conversations that we've had. And I know you've got this amazing book coming out, and you're doing a lot of really depth coaching, and you're just like high level helping people to just up level. So kind of take us on a mini journey of how this, because you teach something called the Custom Trailblazer Blueprint. It's a little bit of a tongue twister. Custom Trailblazer Blueprint. And and I know that anytime somebody has birthed something into the world via this creation model of helping others, there's always a little backstory, oftentimes not cloaked in the most positive of things, albeit there are exceptions. So I know a little bit about your background, but not a lot. What can you tell us about how that came to be?
I started coaching 10 years ago. I'll just dive right in.
Oh,
Guys,
yeah, please.
we're just going to go deep. I'm just going to get right to it. So 12 years ago, I was in an abusive relationship, and it took a lot of courage to leave that home. I left in the night without most of my things. And it was very scary to leave. And it took me a while to recognize I was actually in the abusive relationship, because what I was experiencing was normal to me as a kid. And so it was life-changing for me to A, acknowledge what it was, and B, to remove myself and my dog safely. And so I decided if I could overcome that, then I could do the thing I've always wanted to do, was to coach other people to overcome their obstacles. And so 2 weeks later, I was enrolled in a certification program, and that was 10 years ago now. So fast forward a little bit, I was struggling to build that business. I was working 7 days a week, evenings and weekends, and still the business was shrinking. I was 41 years old 7 years ago, and I had wanted to be a mom my entire life. But at 41, I desperately wanted to be a mom because the biological clock was ticking. Mm-hmm. So I'd spent my savings on donor sperm and inseminations. I was $35,000 in debt, and I had to slow down and go, what wasn't working? What did I really want? When the last insemination showed up a false positive, that's when I slowed down, because I thought something is trying to talk to me. My soul is trying to share with me that maybe I'm on the wrong path. And my company is called Pathfinder Solutions. So actually I named the company that before the recognition of my own path myself.
Finding the true, authentic, like what's really happening here? Where am I being led ultimately?
That's right, Sherry. Yes. Where am I being led? And so I took 6 months, and I said, I'm going to stop inseminations. I'm going to get really in touch with who I am, what I want, and what's important to me. And I'm going to let the voice of my inner wisdom speak to me, because I knew I was moving so fast that I actually couldn't hear where I was being led to. I was trying too hard to make something happen. And what I know now from experience and with working with lots and lots of different people is that when we try to make something happen, we're pushing against what is to be, or what is our natural essence. And what I heard was foster care is my path. And I did not want it. I had heels dug in, my white knuckle grip on giving birth and decided that what was important to me wasn't the way of having the child, the birth myself, was that I wanted to be a mom. And
Yeah.
a mentor to me once said, actually my coaching mentor who certified me as a coach, she said, when we're going after something that we really want, a vision, we want to be really committed to the thing we want, but not how we get there. And I got quiet in those 6 months and thought, how I'm getting there, I'm attached to it being birth.
Right.
Versus being really committed to the thing I want. And so a year later, I got a call saying there's a 1-month-old baby girl who might be coming to your home for foster care. Hang tight. We'll know more later today. She might go to next of kin. We don't know. We're still looking into background checks and so forth. And I'd had this experience already about a month earlier with a baby boy who was 3 weeks old. It didn't work out. I'm standing in the grocery store picking out formula and diapers, and I get the phone call from the foster agency saying he's not coming. With tears running down my face, I put it all back on the shelf and walked out. And so I was excited about this, but I just went about my day trying not to think about it and have such grips on it. I was supposed to go to a Royals baseball game. I live in Kansas City that night. And instead, I got a call and said, go pick her up. So I did. And I went to bed that night as a single mom with a business to run and a yard. And I also got this part-time job of foster agency visits to my house, taking her to birth parent visits and court hearings.
Yeah.
That is the story of how the Trailblazer Blueprint was created, because I had to reevaluate how I was going to do all of this. And some said I shouldn't do it financially because of finances, because I was single, because I had a business to run that wasn't very successful at the time, or was shrinking. My clients were achieving success, but the growth of the actual business wasn't happening. But I knew, because I had gotten quiet and slowed down, that this was my path. And I did it, and I went for it. And that what's on this blueprint are the pieces to know about ourselves, from what matters to us and our values, all the way down to the day-to-day prioritization and calendaring. So it's big picture and it's small picture. So it takes who we are, what we want, and we get really clear about how each day we're going to journey through to accomplish those things, and not just accomplish those things in a way of sacrificing. I almost call this blueprint success without sacrifice.
There's that old suffering model, the old martyr syndrome, the old, like, it has to be so hard to get what I want.
Yes.
That's old thinking now. We know that's old thinking.
It's so old thinking, Sheree. Yes. And this more equals more. We have to work harder. And if we don't, then are we worthy of it? Or is it really possible?
Do we deserve it?
Do we deserve it? Yes. And I find myself in that thinking. I had to check myself on a daily basis. 2 days ago, I went to a surrender yoga class. There's a lot to do before the book launches, and I was in that place of trying to just go faster without slowing down, practicing the pieces that are in this book. And I said, no, I'm going to do the thing I'm teaching people. I'm going to go for an hour and stretch my body and relax and reduce this overwhelm so I can stay focused. I calendared on the next day 5 hours of time where I would be in creation mode, turned off all the distractions, and hammered it out. And that's how I went faster, was the previous day slowing down. And it's counterintuitive approach, but let's talk about that for a minute.
We talked about this earlier when we were off air. So sometimes you're given, let's just say there's an opening there for you, and you kind of are drawn to it, but it feels, like you said, counterintuitive, as if, hey, this isn't the way that it says in the books. This isn't part of my belief system. What is this thing that I'm being, shown, called to do, whatever. How do you know if what is being shown to you is actually your true path versus in this counterintuitivity, right? Because it can be very paradoxical. How do you know that it's actual truth for you and of your highest, let's just say your highest good, versus just some rogue, random, like go out of the box and stretch yourself, like, and sometimes they're the same thing, but oftentimes you can go down the quote unquote wrong path. But I have a whole theory. There's no such thing as the wrong path, but that's another conversation.
I agree, actually.
We could go there too, but
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
how do you discern, I guess is what I'm saying, what's, actually your soul's highest good?
That is, I think, the $1,000,000 question that a lot of us wrestle in.
Yes.
And this is where we're talking about human design earlier.
Yes.
And we try to figure it out in our heads with the mental. We can't actually get true knowing in our heads. The answers are in our body. That's what I did for that 6 months, was to go into my body. I was so in my head, again, trying to find the answers and figure out what was the right and the wrong, because my inner critic had a lot to say about it. And I didn't know if it was right or wrong. And so I had to drop down. The saying I've heard that many might know is that the longest journey is from the head to the heart. And I would also say the longest journey is the head into the body, into, like, for solar plexus is where I'm touching myself now. That's where I find that I really can connect with the truth. And there are different ways for us to make decisions. Before I was introduced to human design, I thought we all made decisions the same way. And I wanted to encourage people to use their intuition, which isn't wrong, but there's different ways of accessing that knowing in our body. Sometimes for me, it's I can in an instant know, but I can't force it. I can't say I'm going to know tomorrow, because I may not. But I get to be still enough to listen, that it's going to just pop in. For others, they're on sort of this emotional so up and down swings, which is part of a process of understanding what's right for us. And in the emotional cycle, we have to play that out to get our answers. That's another way that people make decisions. But knowing what the right way for you and I to make decisions is what's really important. And that's how we know if we're just getting out of the box just to go rogue, or if we're harnessing a counterintuitive approach that really could work for us.
And really evolve you, grow you. I want to come back to your daughter, because we need to, like, the listeners are like, what happened? So I had a very similar path as you. As you know, our youngest was, trying to bring her here, her and her older brother, after having biological children and knowing that they were coming, and lots of interesting ways the universe took this. It was so, again, counterintuitive. A girl that I life coach was actually carrying my son that we had connected 10 years earlier. Like, she moved in with us, like, so unorthodox. Like, I helped deliver him, at the hospital, cut the cord. That's how we got Eli. And then I'm like, where's the girl coming from? And then after a series of very miraculous events, I was supposed to adopt her at birth. In my mind, birth mom ended up just sending me away, but wanted me to come out to California for her birth. And I bonded the baby, the whole thing. She told me to go home one night because I actually approached them that this is not a safe situation. I go home empty handed. I cry for 3 weeks and then get a call that she'd been taken into foster custody. And thus commenced my fight with the court system for 6 court hearings later. We finally got custody of her when she was 4 months old. So I can relate to what you're saying with, like, it's a part-time job. I had to, like, move out there for almost 6 months and leave my other kids with my husband, and just to do all the foster stuff and the visitation and the courts and all the things. But ultimately we were able to adopt her when she was just under a year old. And I know that you've adopted your daughter as well. How long was that process? And then what did you, like, these little souls come in as, like, teachers of us. Emma came through in sevens. She's the 7th member of our family. She was born on 7/7/14. Like, that was the pattern that, and I looked at what that meant in terms of, symbolism. And that's why she got the name Emma, because Emma means wholeness, completeness. And that's what scripturally 7 means. But there were so many layers to, as I look back, but when I was in the middle of it, I'm like, this sucks. I do not know what is happening. This is so weird. Why would God, angels, the universe, ask me to leave my, other 4 kids with my husband and go out to California and live? I had a 2-year-old, an 8th grader, a 10th grader, and a senior in high school. And I had to literally leave them and go, for 5 months. So anyway, it's, that is the story. Because when I asked you what started your blueprint path and how that came to you, it's the same for me. It was this experience that taught me about creation and surrender, and how my life did not need to go on and mold into a conformist sort of to be the right path, right? And now I find myself giving women permission to do that. And I know you do as well, women and men, of like, guess what? And I think I'm going to quote you. You said, the well-beaten path is worn out and leads to a life of stress, exhaustion, and lack of direction. Blazing your own trail paves the way for more ease and peace and true success and satisfaction. I'm quoting you on that because it's so relevant to our stories with how we got our daughters. And how old is your daughter now, by the way?
She'll be 6 in July.
Okay, so she's a year younger than my Emma. And what's her name?
Maddie Rose.
Rose, my favorite
thing. There are so many layers in my story, and my stepfather died now 12 years ago. So he was dead when Maddie came to me. And the day that I got that call that there might be a 1-month-old baby girl coming to my home was my stepfather's birthday. And he and I were very close. Out of my 4 parents, 2 biological and 2 step or bonus parents, he was the one that I had a true connection with. And every time we parted, he would say, I love you. And remember, it always works out.
Beautiful.
And so it was on his birthday that she came, and she was literally exactly 1 month old. So she was born a month before that. And I was lying in bed the night before because I had a kind of a tip that there might be somebody coming to my home. And I was talking with my stepdad, Roger, and I said, your hands are all over this. I know they are. Because when I was 16, he and I would talk about me wanting a child. And he would always talk about it being a girl and taking her shopping. And that's how he wanted the 3 of us to bond and be together. And he always would do special things with me like that, with, taking me shopping when I wouldn't have that luxury with my biological mom. And so I went shopping when, shortly after she came, and got an outfit at the store that he and I always said we would go to. And so even though in 3 years of foster care, it was just under 3 years, and many times I thought that she would go back to a dangerous situation because of the way the system was happening and what things were working.
So hard. That's such a hard place to be.
It's hard. It's the hardest thing I've ever done. I would do it again for her, but it was literally the hardest thing. And it built me as a woman, as a mother, and as a coach to be very clear and very purposeful. And when she came to me, I found such purpose. I was lost. The business changed around because I knew my purpose. And I was deepening into, I'm doing this. This is my life, my business. The work I do in the world is now for a reason. My purpose wasn't big enough before. It was about me before, and now it's about her. And she's my why.
She's adorable. Nice pictures of her.
Yeah, she is. Thank you. And she knows it. And that's my goal, is that she is raised with a knowing of who she is. And this book I'm writing is a legacy to her and to all children and grownups what's possible if we connect with ourselves. We have to slow down to do that. We can't connect if we don't slow down. My therapist reinforces that with me. My own coach reinforces that with me. And so my legacy at this moment is to support children in their emotional and mental well-being so that they can grow up to live fully, like you say, in wholeness.
Yeah, because
does that
children,
answer about the story?
No, it's great. And I do feel like, because I was also older when Emma came along. She wasn't even born. Let's see, I was 43 when Eli was born, of course. And she came just under 2 years later. So I was 45. And it was not what I would have chosen, because I had already, there's 12 years between the last child I gave birth to and Eli. And it's not something that I would have, like, as a little girl, because I knew I wanted to be a mom and I wanted to have a lot of kids. I just knew that. And I just assumed I would give birth to them. And I just assumed that it was going to be a certain way. And it wasn't the trajectory of my highest growth or theirs. And when, even if you're not a parent, even if you, let's just say that actually never came to fruition for you, and that would have just been devastating, I'm sure. And she had to reunify with her birth mother, whatever the situation was. In a parallel universe, you would have also learned something very powerful about that as well. I think these souls come in and they just kind of push the boundaries. One thing I'm learning is that they trigger our inner child stuff that's unhealed. And it helps me in my coaching practice, as I'm sure it does you, because most of the people that we guide and mentor are really unknowingly, let's say, still little children trying to get seen, heard, and validated. And it's a thing.
Yes. And I think I've heard you talk about this in your podcast. I've been listening to it for a while, about working with that inner child, or the inner, the little girl or the little boy inside of us. And I do that. Yeah, the wound. Yes. And we do go to those places when we're on the verge of a breakthrough. And yes, my daughter triggers me all the time, constantly. And yeah, she does. And the perspective that helps me stay patient and present. I have the 3 Ps that are my intention every day with her. And most days I'm successful and some days I'm not, especially when I'm going too fast. And that is to be present, to be playful, and to be patient. Because what she can trigger in me is my wound of not having patience with me and being so hard on me as a little girl. Yep. And I can be hard on her. So I come back to my P's. She's such a playful little soul, little being. And this morning I was trying to rush her to get out the door. She was up late. She had soccer practice. She was playing on the playground afterwards. It was a beautiful day here in Kansas City, and she went to bed late and she got up late. And so I'm rushing her out the door, and I let go of all 3 of my P's. And
you just went unconscious just for a sec, and that's okay.
I did. I was triggered in that. And it is okay. And my therapist and the folks that I used to be in a women's therapy group with, they're always say, with our children now, because we're working on healing our childhood wounds, it's okay if we mess up. We get to be honest about that. And they get to see that we have big feelings too. And they get to see how we navigate those. And my sister posted something on Facebook about being a mom. And at the bottom of it was a link to a book about, and this is not a plug because I have no idea even who wrote it. I just bought it. It's okay to not be okay. And how adults have big feelings too. And I ordered that thing because I have a shirt from the foster agency,
Yeah.
Yeah, that says it's okay to not be okay. And it's a reminder to me and to her and to all of us that we get to be fully human. We get to teach each other about these big feelings we have. We get to have them. It's
Mm.
okay if they melt down in the grocery store. We don't have to worry about what people think. We get to let them have their feelings. Sometimes
Mhm.
I'm successful in that. Sometimes I'm not. I'm struggling with
Yeah.
my own stuff of what will people think. But
That's a
ultimately,
big one. That is a big one. I think that's at the crux of so many of these barriers, blocks, whatever you want to call it, is the people pleasing, is the making it okay for, some of the best advice I had is, it's not my business what other people think of me. And in the inverse, right? It, that is my practice because I care so much. I care about people. I care about, and then you get into this ego of perception, how am I being perceived versus, the real paradox here is that it's our people pleasing that keeps us from really being who we actually are. It's if we really cared, we would be who we are. If we really cared about humanity, we would show up authentically as our true self. We would move heaven and earth to do that.
yeah, yes, because that is what will change the world, not a facade or trying to say something to appease or
Yeah,
please someone else. It's easy to get pulled into that.
it is so easy. Well, I want to ask you because this is a good place to kind of move into the whole idea of a trailblazer and also like defining success. I know that success is, to me, it's a little bit of a masculine word just because I busted my butt for 10 years to build my business in a masculine, let's just say there wasn't the same consciousness that there is now around, how to grow an intuitive business. I worked harder than I needed to, probably. I don't regret a lot of it, but success, I think, is a very sacred, there's a sacred meaning for each person. So I'm very curious how you define it and then how the whole trailblazer sort of paradigm works into that.
I define it how anybody defines it for themselves. And what that means is we can compare ourselves. I compared myself to my mentor for a very long time and thought I was nothing or unworthy or shouldn't be doing what I'm doing as a coach if I'm not at that level where she's at. And that was what stopped me so long. That
Mhm.
thinking, that comparison, despair is a thief of joy.
Yeah.
Comparison, and so in comparison, and so what I help people understand and come to for themselves is outside of what the comparison is, if we connect into our being and at the end of our life, what is going to be most important to us? I had a business person the other day tell me, Tamie, this is what you can do with your business. And immediately I thought, wow, that is going to take me working all the time. And my definition of success right now, for me, real success, is not going after somebody else's idea of what it should be, because I miss out on my daughter's life if I do that. That is going to take a lot more from me.
Mhm.
And I appreciated him offering that because it helped me get really clear that is not my definition. What I'm measuring it by is her smiles and how many practices I get to be at and jujitsu competitions and how I feel at the end of the day. And yes, the revenue I'm tracking as well. That's part of being a business owner, a conscious business owner, to be looking at the metrics that matter and the client success and the client results. But to measure it, true success is what really matters to us
Mhm.
in the end.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
It's
true.
not your parents, not your spouse, not your the society's idea of it, not your industry's idea of what it should be, or your colleague or your mentor.
Yeah. Yeah. And measuring, and we do have to be a little careful that we're not responsible for the smiles of those we're taking care of. Like we shouldn't base our own happiness on, because I got into that loop a little bit, raising my older children who are now all in their 20s. But I'm resonating with what you're saying on such a deep level. Like, if I'm spending most of my energy in things that aren't sustainable, like my relationship to my children, my husband, whatever, and I'm trying to hit, this imaginary audience, and I'm spending most of my time there, like I go to bed feeling empty. I go to bed feeling like, wait, I'm not smiling. Like, not only are my kids not smiling, I'm not smiling. And then I just do it differently the next day. And it's just all learning, right?
That's beautiful.
It's just all learning.
Yeah.
So Trailblazer. So we're basically talking about what? Just like defining success for yourself and doing it, even though it might look weird or strange or off the path for others, off the beaten path.
Being a trailblazer is knowing or stepping onto your true path and living in the balance that you want. It's living congruent with how you spend your time, who you spend your time with, doing, again, when we talked about the human design, each of us have a different way of becoming, living correct with ourselves. And to me, being a trailblazer is living correct with the authentic values and the soul's purpose, staying really connected to that. And so being a trailblazer, you look it up online and the definition will say is paving a way for others. It's being a pioneer. It's kind of the masculine look at it in a way. But I work with my clients to say, so who do you want to make a difference for? Sometimes it's in your own home.
Yeah.
Sometimes we want to take a rocket ship to the moon. It can be anywhere in between. But I think of Frank Sinatra doing it your way, right? Doing it meaning living your life, running your business, being in your career, being a parent, being a community advocate for whatever cause matters to you, but without sacrificing what's important to you.
Yeah, those super innate core values, because you said, what do you value? That is what success is, right? Is for you. If you can be in a place where you're living your core values, has nothing to do with ethics and morality. I mean, it might. It's not a set of beliefs handed to you. That's not your core values, because that's what I was taught they were. Do this program we told you and value this stuff. And I had to do a lot of unpacking and really look at, what do I actually want? What sings to my soul? What do I value? Because what I value may not be what one of my siblings values, or even one of my children. We have to live true to, at the end of the day, we tuck ourselves in at night, not our kids. And that was one of the biggest ahas to me. We tuck ourselves in every night. We look ourselves in the mirror. And that, you and I, we've been talking a little bit about human design. For our listeners that don't know, it's a program. You and I are both what they call a projector. That's our human design. There are others, but I would encourage listeners to go. Isn't there like an online test they can take? It's just, you could probably just Google human design free profile or free test. And it's just basically what you're asked, your time of birth, date of birth, place of birth, and you can find out how you tick.
That's right.
How you're built.
Jovian Archive, JOVIAN archive.com. And that you can, that is the official website. And you can take knowing your birth time is really important. And there's
What
ways
time
that
were you born?
8:33 in the morning.
I
But
was
because
born
of
at, yeah.
what time?
Oh, 4:32 a.m.
So on the day and the time of your birth, that's the neutrinos of the universe. What is happening in the universe at the time of your birth is our makeup, essentially.
It's so
From
fascinating.
it is so fascinating. We could talk about that, but
Yeah, let's yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, just so you guys know, I'm all about like find as many tools and profile type assessments as you can. And this was created so high vibration, as was the Gene Keys, GeneKeys, that I love, that it's a higher vibratory, more expansive view on how you're engineered based on, like you just said, the soup, the caterpillar soup that you were, the universe was in at the moment you incarnated. And there's no accidents. But I'm a fan of people going out and finding that's very, very affirming, and your core values will be hidden in those types of assessments and those types of profiles.
And as an example, us being projectors, we're not meant to be the worker bees. We're meant to be the guides. And so as I get into worker bee mode, I feel incongruent. I feel, as the term is used in human design, is not correct. And that is being the trailblazer in your life, is being congruent and doing business and living life in harmony or congruence with who you naturally are, because we get messages and we aren't necessarily supported in who we naturally are. Like my daughter's human design, she is designed to eat with noise. It's just her human design. That's what's correct for her. But if we think about growing up and we're taught to sit down and we're taught to be quiet, and those are appropriate for, so those can, I understand why we want to teach our children etiquette. And so I have a delicate balance of wanting to support her in her human design, because if she's incongruent with herself, there's this offness with her living who she truly is. And then we start to think that, well, gosh, I'm not supposed to have noise when I'm eating because I'm being told to sit and be quiet. And so I translate that when I get older. I really want to do this with my life and in this way, but I have this message that says I can't. But it's what's natural for me. What's natural for me. I was talking with my family the other night. I'm working so much right now to prepare for the book launch that I just don't feel congruent. So I'm doing extra things to support that. But immediately my goal is to get back to that correctness, so I can be more effective at what I do and have that sense of inner peace in my world.
So important. Well, I know we could continue this discussion for a while, as is the case with almost everyone that I get on with. I just like, yap, yap, yap. But I feel like we really honed in on this piece of like, find what makes you tick, find how you're built. I mean, and you have an offer for our listeners to be able to access the Custom Trailblazer Blueprint, because you have this book launch coming this week. How exciting.
On Friday, May 20th. So I've dedicated my coaching career to, this is really 10 years of coaching, the resources, the awarenesses, all in one page. And so as part of this book launch, to offer this bonus to you, to have these 21 pieces and also a little description of what those are. A second bonus is to have some time to figure out, well, what is with me, what is the most important piece for you to get on, going on your path, or being more clear about your path. You could be on it already. We don't know. And so that is free. It's something that I want to bring to the world in this process that I've been in, of evolving the Trailblazer Blueprint. And this coaching that I do is is in this. It's one page. It's one
It's
page.
like all condensed down to
it's
like
all condensed.
I was going to say Reader's Digest version, but people don't know what that is anymore unless you're
No,
old.
they don't. I know what that is, but you already know my age. It is condensed. And if we use, it helps us bring balance, helps us bring congruence. It helps us find out what we tick. It helps us understand what our unique genius is. And then say, okay, well, then how am I going to start living that? And it gives a framework for living it.
Okay, cool. And so you also have another bonus of kind of like a discovery call with you, correct?
Yes. And it's called the Rising Greatness Discovery Call. So brought my name in.
Yay.
Because it isn't just about that. It is what is rising in you.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And how do we let that out? What is the one piece of this blueprint that we can focus on, that you can focus on right now to unleash yourself on this trail that is your own? When we take our own path, whole life changes. We have lots of examples of that in the world that we could talk about. When we see somebody on the outside, you can see on their face and you can see in their body just how they move and their confidence and their knowing and their grace, and
that they've accessed that for themselves.
That they've accessed it, and that they're what I would call trailblazing their life.
That's so cool. And we're going to have a link for our listeners to be able to grab this. You kind of want all this to kind of culminate by May 20th. So there's some time here we really want you to hit that bestseller status. We really want that to happen. And I know it can. And I know that what you're offering is of such high value, talking about core values, and just having known your personality and the conversations that we've had. This is timely. This is, I think people are just waiting sort of for this permission to do this, to rise up, to take the path of least resistance. Is not again, this is so paradoxical, because your path to greatness is the path of resistance, but it's also the path of least resistance, because if you don't take it, your life will be one barrier suffering journey after another. So there's the paradox there. It takes courage, and it takes a mentor. It takes, this is why I created my programs. And like you said, we're guides. We're not here to tell people what to do. That doesn't bring me joy. And I know it doesn't, like I'm bossy, and I have opinions. Ultimately, if somebody works with me, I'm only guiding them into their own knowing. And I know that you are aligned with that as well. So we will have links to that in our show notes. And of course, it'll be available on Amazon. Is that correct?
Yes, the link will be in the show notes for May 20th. That is the day that you can get the book for 99 cents and the free bonuses. And I'm asking people to do it on May 20th because that helps get bestseller. So that's why we're reserving that link and not making it available until May 20th. So everybody that joins in to support this timely message helps also support the bestseller.
And then more people can find your work ultimately, even after that. And it's beautiful that you're offering this discovery call. So yes, everyone, May 20th is the magic day. If you're listening to this after May 20th, of course, you're still going to be able to find Tammie's book, but we're hoping that we can all align forces to be able to make that happen for you for bestseller. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Gosh, you're welcome. Like I said, I've been listening to your podcast for years. We initially met at a writing course years ago, and I learned about your adoption story, and I immediately got on your podcast. And so I woke up this morning thinking, wow, the podcast I've been listening to for years, I'm going to be on. So it is an honor and a privilege. And thank you very much, Cherie.
Oh, well, I'm glad we can make it work for you today.